No point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
All right, welcome to our show today, folks. This is Doug Crow, the host of the Author Your Brand Show, and I've got way more than an author today. This gentleman is not only an up-and-coming best-selling author, he's a devoted father, he's a retired NFL player, stellar college career, he's broken records, he was a Heisman Trophy candidate, he is probably one of the most respected dads I've ever met in my life. Welcome to the show today, Mr. George Jones. George, how are you?
Good, Doug. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, my honor, my sincere honor. So we're gonna talk about your history a little bit here and the fatherhood thing. But before we get into the details, your background, what you're doing now, give the listeners like a couple of things they're going to learn today that will make them want to stick around and listen to us next 20, 30 minutes.
Well, I would say they will learn how much of a devoted father and family man I am, and that I've pretty much dedicated my life to being there, being present for my kids and my wife.
Yeah.
And learn a little bit about my background and who helped me get to where I'm at today.
Okay. And in terms of what people can do, like, you know, we're going to learn about you, but what can we teach them today, or like one or two key things they can learn about being a better dad?
I would say being present, being present all the time, being authentic. I would say being authentic, talk the talk. If you're going to talk the talk, you walk it. And I would just say be a participant dad, where you're always participating, whether it's in sports or going up to your kid's school. I would say those things.
All right. So all these things sound like, well, of course I'm going to be present, but as we'll find out in a minute, folks, it's not always the case. And especially in your case, George, it's especially interesting because your background is you grew up without a father.
That is correct. I grew up, I'm from Greenville, South Carolina. Yes, that is correct. I grew up without a father. So most of my, as I can remember, I've always wanted to be a father, because I remember when I was young, I always wanted to say those three letters, dad, dad, dad. I never got the chance to do that. So now me having the opportunity to be a father myself is the greatest thing in the world.
Without a dad, you know, not many people, well, too many people nowadays experience that. I think it's around 40%. But I'm sort of curious about when you're growing up in Greenville, did you have other friends that had dads that you were like looking at going, I wish I had that? Or what was it about that made you even dream of it?
Well, I would say in 1987, I met a guy named Nathan Broom, and we became really good friends. And I went over to his house in 1987 for the first time and met his family, his mom Jackie, his dad Monty, and his sister Leah. And so wanting to have a dad and you know, have somebody to role model after, I remember Monty, how he was with Leah and Nate, how he was so calm, he was very respectful, he was helpful to them, and he was a good husband to Jackie, his wife. And, you know, growing up seeing that, I said, when I get my chance, I'm going to try to be a great dad like Monty is. And that's what I still try to do today. I've got a lot of respect for Monty, and Monty has helped me out quite a bit. I don't think I would be the father today without his guidance and his he don't even know how much he's helped me to become a good father.
I think you might have a little clue. I don't know. You've got three wonderful boys there. I'm curious about when you're growing up, you didn't have a dad, but how bad was it? I mean, did you grow up like in a bad area or what?
Well, I grew up in a place, it was Woodland Homes. It was projects in Greenville, South Carolina. I mean, growing up there, I wouldn't say, people outside would say it was bad. I didn't think it was bad because that's all we knew. You know, that's all we knew. And, you know, we did what you typically see on TV and neighborhoods like the projects. We would run around, play a bunch of sports. The water hydrants would be broken. Drug selling, all of that stuff. So for me growing up, that was just everyday life, and it was nothing that it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was hard to grow up like that, but it was different. So it was different when I would go over to Nate's house. It was like everything was much calmer. There were no loud noises. There were no shootings and things of that nature. So it was, again, I wouldn't change it if if I could go back and change it, because it has made me the person I am today.
That's interesting perspective. Yeah, you grew up in what we call a rough neighborhood, but since you didn't have any other experience for a while, it was just normal for you, right?
Yes, it was normal. I mean, and I enjoyed it because it helped me develop some toughness about myself.
Mm-hmm.
It helped me become a better football player. And that experience growing up like that, it made me want to get out of the circumstance I was in. It made me want to do well so I can go to college and possibly get a good job and make money to be able to live a better life. So
Mm-hmm.
that environment, it only motivated me to become the person I am today.
And this is the thing that I'm eternally curious about when I listen to you and working on your book coming out. We'll talk about that in a minute, and your foundation that you're setting up. We'll talk about that
Yeah.
in a minute as well. But I'm really curious about this fork in the road where you've got challenges of growing up where you did, and it created a desire in you to do better and to get out. Whereas I don't know what the percentage is. Most people tend to stay and wallow in that area because they don't know better, or they don't think better, or they don't believe they can get out. What was the difference for you? Why did you feel like you could use football to get out of the situation?
Well, again, it goes back to that's all we knew growing up. Our parents couldn't pay for us to go to college, so sports was the only avenue to go to college. If you can be good in, basketball or football, you can go to college. And I also think, Doug, with meeting Nate and the Broom family and meeting Monty, I think when I got around him, he gave me a lot of confidence about myself. Um, I didn't really think I was a good football player growing up. I had doubts about my skills, but when I got around Money and I met Money, he saw something in me really, really early that I didn't see in myself. So I'm not for sure if I didn't meet Money, if I would have had the desire or the confidence about myself to get out of the situation I was in. So again, I got to credit Money and Jackie Broom for a lot of the success that helping me get out of that bad situation that I was in and putting me in the right direction and getting to the place in my life where I'm at today.
That is a profound statement, George, because yeah, everyone has potential, but sometimes it takes someone else to help you realize that, yeah, you can become great. We all have it in us, right? I mean, it's just a matter of someone telling you, believing
Oh
in you.
yeah, I mean, it was funny, Doug. Again, this is a man, a white guy who from day one took a liking to me and treated me like I was his own blood son. And when I use that word authentic, he is authentic as they come. How he treated me in my face was how he treated me when I wasn't around. He was always very respectful. He always tried to make me feel comfortable. Him and Jackie and Nate, as Nate is my friend Nate, and his sister Liv, they all tried to they did a great job in making me feel wanted, feeling comfortable, feeling secure. And again, like I said, without that family, I'm not for sure I will be talking to you right now.
You mentioned, was Nate on your high school football team? Was he a player too, or what?
Yes. So again, I met Nate in
Yeah.
1987 in the seventh grade. At that point, I had never played football with kids that didn't look like me. So going into the 8th grade, Nate and his dad and his mom asked me to play for a team called Eastside Dolphins. And I told them I would play, but I couldn't afford, to pay the money to play and to get all the equipment and things of that nature. And Monty and Jackie said, we'll take care of all that. If you want to play, we would love to have you. So getting that experience with playing with kids that didn't look like me, it opened up a different avenue for me on how different type of talent was and getting along with people who didn't look like me. And so fast forward going into the 9th grade, that propelled me to help me get into the 9th grade and to get on varsity my first year in high school and have the confidence about playing because, again, playing with the Eastside Dolphins and playing with other people who didn't look like me gave me a lot of confidence that I can do that. And also, Nate and his dad, Monty and Jackie, also building my confidence up about myself, telling me, George, you got some talent. If you stick with what you're doing, you can be a good football player and possibly go to college. So again, all that being around them, the confidence building and all that, it just meant the world to me.
This sounds like the Blind Side movie, right?
Yes, it really was because people don't know, like Monty and Jackie bought me my first car. They bought me a brown Oldsmobile. I mean, and I love the car because I never had a car in anything. So again, Monty and Jackie, they basically took me in, took care of me financially, emotionally, spiritually. Again, they treated me like I was their own blood son. So I will always be indebted to them, and I can never pay them back. The only thing I can try to do for the rest of my life is to be a good father to our 3 boys, GJ, Max, and Cooper, and to be a good husband to my wife Katie, just like he was and is a good husband to Jackie and a good father to Nate and Leah. So that's how I'm going to repay him, by doing and being the best family man I possibly can.
That's so heartwarming. We've had a couple conversations before, so I know we may have talked about things, but this is new people listening, watching this. So when you were, NFL, well, I'm going right to the NFL. We'll go right from high school past San Diego. I want to go to the NFL stuff here. Playing in NFL, you're kind of a big deal, finally making some money on your own, etc.
Yeah.
But I want to go right to the fatherhood thing, right? Athletes tend to have their choice of dating opportunities more so than us civilians.
Mm-hmm.
But you told me a very, very touching story that when your first son was born, he grabs that little finger.
Yes.
It was like a new man was born there too, right?
Oh yes.
I want to hear about that experience.
When GJ was first born on January 23rd, 2007, I can remember him grabbing my finger and everything, and I whispered in his ear, and I told him, I said, I will always be here for you, GJ. I will always be here, no matter what, through thick and thin, through good and bad. I will always be here for you. And that day, Doug, that when my oldest son, who bears my name, was born, that's the day I became a man. I became a man that day.
Because before that,
I was still a boy doing boy things and, doing what typical athletes and typical people do that's in this, that play sports. Mm-hmm. But again, once GJ was born, I became a man that day because the responsibility that was thrust upon me and Katie, I know it was big, and I had to make sure that I was ready for it, and that all that other stuff had to be put on the back burner.
So maybe you'll say this is Monty's influence, but I'm curious because, you're not the only professional athlete to have a family, but you're, I think, maybe in the minority that like gets so focused on the family thing that they don't look at all the distractions. What was it about, you think, in your life or your belief system that said, I'm born, this is it now? Because
again, not having a father, it's just like anything, when you don't have something and you get a chance to have it, you crave it. So I knew once me and Katie had our first child that I knew this is what I wanted. I wanted to be a father. I wanted to be there full time, all the time. I wanted to be there for everything he or she was going to be doing. So for me, I had prepared myself mentally for this as the days were coming near of his birth. So it was nothing that I shied away from. I relished the challenge, and I wanted to face this head on, and I'm glad I did. I mean, again, people say to me all the time about, scoring a touchdown in the NFL, rushing for 100 yards and being drafted and this and that and knowing a bunch of famous people. That's cool and is, all fine and good. But the greatest gift the good Lord has ever given me is to be a father to our three boys. That's the greatest gift I've ever been given. The talent to play football and all that is secondary to this. So for me, I love football and I enjoyed it, but it can never touch being a father, in my opinion, to me.
That is amazing. So you've got three boys,
Yes.
GJ and Max and Cooper.
Yes.
Tell us about the experience of being a father. After the first one, you're like, okay, I'm reborn. I'm a new guy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you decide to become full-time dad at that point when the first one's born?
Yeah. So right before GJ was born, me and Katie, we talked on who was going to work and who would stay home. And so I got to give Katie a lot of credit. She knew how important this was to me to be a stay-at-home father. So she allowed me to be the one to stay home, and she worked full time. And it was crazy, Doug. I remember we were living in San Diego, and GJ were born, and Katie gave birth, and she stayed home for like the typical 3 months that she was allowed to. And Katie was working and in grad school all at the same time. So Katie would get up and pump all the milk for me for the day. She would leave, and I wouldn't see her for like 14 hours. So I got to give Katie a lot of credit on allowing me to live out my dream of being a stay-at-home dad, because without her allowing me to be able to do this, this wouldn't be possible. So I have to give her a lot of credit for this. And to answer your second question, I thought having one kid was really hard. I can remember I never put GJ down because he was one of those kids. He would not sleep in the crib. He would sleep on me. And I can remember, and it's funny, Doug, I would have to use the bathroom really, really bad, but I was afraid to put GJ down while he was sleeping. So I would go into the bathroom and try to use the bathroom, and then I would end up using the bathroom all over my legs and things of that nature. I wouldn't put him down because as soon as I put him down, he would wake back up and start crying. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to touch him and hold him like all the time. I mean, while Katie was at work during that time, I would probably walk him outside because San Diego had, they got great weather year round. So I would walk him 2-3 hours a day, just walking with him and looking at him while he's sleeping and studying him. And then me and Katie made the decision to have our second son, have another son 2 years later, Max.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is where life hits you and it becomes difficult. So when our son Max was born on May 12, 2009, out here in Austin, Texas, we did not know that he had Down syndrome until he was born. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. When your kid is born, they let the mother hold, and then they clean him, and then they put him in this little roller thing to take him to the heat room. And I can remember the two nurses, they were whispering under their breath about Max. And I remember when GJ was born, they wasn't doing that. So I asked the nurse, is something wrong, ma'am? And they said, well, Mr. Jones, we don't want to alarm you, but I think your son has Down syndrome. At the time, I didn't know what Down syndrome was. So I was like, well, he looks just like GJ. He looks, normal. So they was like, well, the doctor come in and talk to you. So, I Googled Down syndrome, and when I did it, I almost passed out. I knew right then and there my life as a father was changed forever. I remember the doctor telling me and Katie, and mind you, Katie is in the recovery room getting stitched up. She had no idea about this. So just think about it. We was on a emotional high for like 10 minutes and then a nosedive quickly. I can remember looking at the phone and looking at the pictures and what it was saying, and I didn't believe it, and I didn't want to believe it. So when the doctor came in and talked to us, and they said, we want to do blood tests to be 100% sure. So we end up coming home, and I can remember throughout the whole time, it was like 10 days. It was like agony going through the 10 days, because I prayed like hard that that wasn't the case, but I knew deep down inside this was the case. I remember I was at the gym, and then Katie gave me the call, and that was that. And so then your life turns like that, and then now you got to fight, and that's what me and Katie did. It made us stronger as a family and everything. And I can say now Max will be 13 in May. At the time, it was really tough, because I remember the first 3 years of his life, I probably cried 10 times a day. No lie, 10 times a day.
Sure.
So then I had to pick myself up and say, you know what, George, you got to stop feeling bad for yourself. You his father, you got to do right by him. And then from that point on, I had to do right by him, and I had to fight, and I had to fight for him. And so from that point, I could now, 13 years later, I could imagine life without Max, because Max has given me something that I don't think I would have had not him being born, which is empathy. I don't think I would have had that had Max not been born. So, they always say the good Lord don't give you anything you can't handle. Yeah. So me being a former professional football player, my DNA, I'm built differently. So I wasn't going to quit. I never quitted in anything. So I was just going to stand up and fight and do right by Max. And Katie, we just made the decision we're going to do right and make sure that he lives the best possible life that he can live. And so we, during that time, we made the decision to try to have another son, another child. We didn't know it was going to be a boy, because we did not want GJ to have to raise Max by himself if something happened to me and Katie. So we started trying to have another son, another son, but there was complications, because Katie had like some scar tissues, which was preventing, all the necessary stuff to happen. So once she got that cleaned out and cleared, and we went back to trying to conceive, we conceived on the first try. And the crazy thing, Doug, about it is GJ and Cooper were conceived on the same day, 5 years apart.
Wow.
That is correct. GJ and Cooper are supposed to have the same birthday. GJ was born on January the 23rd. Cooper was born January the 17th. The reason why Cooper's birthday is not on the 23rd, because he was so big, he was 11 pounds. And they took him out early through C-section, and that's why they don't have the same birthday. But they were both conceived 5 years apart at the exact same time.
Same time. It's a magical day for you guys as a couple. You should definitely bet on some games then or something.
Well, Doug, I would say again, during that pregnancy,
Yeah.
It was not a happy pregnancy. We were stressed out,
I'm sure.
excuse me, the entire time because they told us the odds of having another son with Down syndrome were really high.
Oh, wow.
Yes, were
How
really high.
courageous of you two. Wow.
Yeah, so we both were stressing out throughout the whole time. And anytime we would go to an appointment and Katie would get something like, something done, if a test come back, it was too high or something, we would think the worst. So the pregnancy it was very stressful. It was more stressful on her because she was the one carrying Cooper.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't as stressful on me physically as it was for her. She had to deal with the physical stress and the mental stress on top of working and all that. So Katie was a tough cookie and being able to do that. So she's one of the toughest people I know. But when Cooper was born, I remember the first thing I asked, I was like, does he have Down syndrome?
Yeah,
That
right.
was the first thing. And they said, no, sir. And, everything was good. And again, we were only going to have 2 kids.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, again, I cannot imagine life without Cooper.
Yep.
So the good Lord gave me and Katie the 3 boys and knew I probably needed Max in my life to be a better human being. I really believe that. I really believe that the good Lord did that to make me have more empathy for people because I remember looking at other kids when I would walk in like doctor's offices or hospitals or something like that.
Yeah.
If I saw a kid that looked like he had some type of condition, I would not look at them because I did not want to make the family feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So when Max was when we was going through that with Max, we had to cut all Max's hair off. We had to bick it with with clippers and cut it all bald because he has alopecia real bad. So it attacks spots in his hair, so he will have bald spots.
Okay.
Yes. So we will cut all his hair off. And so when people looked at Max when he was really young, people looked and thought he probably had cancer.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
His hair was off. And so for me, that there was some growth in that as a human being for me, because I used to get very frustrated when people used to like stare at us when I would walk with him. Yeah. So as time went by, I learned to ignore it and just focus on Max. Yeah. So again, I think having Max in our life, the good Lord knew I probably needed that as a man and as a father. Yeah. And so I try not to question. I questioned a long time when Max was first born, to God, like, why did you do this to us? Yeah. I try to be a good person, a good human being, and this happens, and other people who treat people bad and do bad stuff seem to like have all the kids, and the kids are typical and everything, and it made me really angry for quite a while, and so I learned to get over that and believe that the good Lord did this for a reason, and and I learned to accept it, and now we are thriving as a family. Katie is the best at what she does. Being a CEO of the National Domestic Violence Hotline. So I tell our 3 boys all the time, especially GJ and Cooper, about how great their mom is at what she does. Yeah. And I try to do it in like football terms. I would sit here and say, your mom is a franchise player. She's like a Peyton Manning / Patrick Mahomes. And I'm just a role player in the NFL. That's the difference of how good your mom is at her job. Because I want them to understand the great role that their mom plays in their life. That she has a very important job, and that when they get into their own relationships, to make sure that they be very supportive of their own girlfriend, spouse, say whatever it be. So, and I try to do the best I can by modeling that and supporting Katie and letting them know that it is okay that the woman can be the best in the family.
Of course, yeah.
It's okay, but that's in a lot of relationships in a lot of households. I'm telling you, Doug, men do not want to be the guy that's not the breadwinner or the star. Like for me, I've never had that problem with Katie being a star. I relish it. I love it to be married to somebody who's that great at what she does.
Yeah.
And I'm very secure in myself on what I'm doing as a father. So if I probably had some insecurities about who I was as a person, I probably would not be able to handle the spotlight and the great things that Katie's doing.
Yeah.
But I support her 100%, and I'm so proud of her for all the great work that she's doing around the country with domestic violence. Again, she's the best. She's the best at what she does, and
absolutely,
yeah.
We had her on the show. We had her on the show a few months ago, and she is brilliant.
Yeah.
And the thing you're reminding me of is like this thing about alpha males, right? Here you are, former jock, alpha male. I'm like, I'm gonna breadwinner. I'm the pinnacle. Woman's just being a woman to support me, and I'm like, I call those guys false alphas.
Yes.
You're a true alpha because only a true alpha can live with and support an alpha female.
Yes.
Because most people think it's a hierarchy. It's got to be pinnacle, one leader, and then no, you guys are yoked, right? So no, we're both alphas in our own right.
Yes.
And that get you have more, you're more masculine and a better leader than the guys who need to have somebody underneath them versus side by side.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, Doug. Again, I try to do my best to be a great example for, GJ, Max, and Cooper. But for the most part, GJ and Cooper, Max, he can understand some of the things, but he can't. So I'm trying to, live my life as best as I can and try to be the best example of a good husband and try to treat Katie the way that she is supposed to be treated, so they can see when they someday get their own, wife or fiance. I'm trying to model good behavior and being respectful of Katie and loving her and telling her I love her, and being affectionate around her. Sometimes I have a hard time with doing that, being affectionate with her in front of the kids, because my oldest son GJ gives me a hard time about that. But I'm trying to be a good role model for them in the sense of making sure I do right by their mother in front of them and let them know that the love that I have for her over these 26 years has just grown. I mean, I tell Katie all the time, I'm more attracted to Katie now than I was when I first met her. And most people probably wouldn't understand that, because we're older now. But I just think everything that she does and, that she stands for, that's attractive to me in itself, that the good things that she's doing in the world, especially for domestic violence. I'm proud to be her husband, because I tell her and I tell GJ and Cooper all the time that I'm the lucky one out of the family to have Katie, because Katie could get 1,000 other guys, but she chose me. So I'm the lucky one.
Well, you're both lucky for sure, because you both have amazing qualities, and I can't imagine those three boys having better parents.
I appreciate it.
That's so true. Which brings me to my other two questions here on
okay.
You're got a book coming out called The Present Dad.
Yes.
And I know it's a lot about your story and whatnot. You're also going to help people become better fathers or become a better future father, whatever it is.
Yes.
What was the impetus for writing this? Why did this come to mind, or how?
Well, I would say probably about 5 years ago, I didn't think I was doing a good job as a father. Again, I try to be honest about all this with GJ and whoever would listen. I saw this show called The Book of Manny, and I watched it, and it talked about Archie Manny and his family with his wife Olivia and his three sons, Cooper, Peyton, and Eli Manny. I watched the show, and it brought me to tears. It brought some feelings out of me that I didn't know that I even had. So I said, you know what? Maybe something I'm just not feeling right today. I'm gonna watch it again tomorrow. I watched the show again. Man, I'm just bawling. Man, what is wrong with me? I didn't feel when I watched that. I just felt like after watching that, I'm not doing a good job as a father to our three boys. So I reached out to Archie, to Peyton, and asked, "Can I talk to your dad?" So he got in contact with me, Archie, and I was full transparent with him, and I told him, you know, all the things that I do as a father on off the field and in the sports world, and you know, training and coaching my kids. He listened to everything I said, and he gave me some things on how he did with Peyton and Cooper and Eli. And so all the little things that he told me, I tried to implement them into my everyday life with GJ, Max, and Cooper. And I found by implementing those tools, my closeness with especially my oldest son, GJ, it went from like 1 to 1,000. And after learning and, you know, getting those tools from him and talking to other guys like Eric Dickerson and Emmett Smith and Deion Sanders about fatherhood, I said, man, I think I should write a book, because I'm sure there are other dads out there in the world like me who may not feel like they're doing a good enough job and they can use some help. So I'm trying to help as many fathers as I can by not in the sense of saying that you gotta find a Archie or Peyton Manning or Dion or somebody like that. If you find like a neighbor who you perceive to be a good father, don't, you know, feel like you can't go and ask anybody, you know, what are you doing right? Can you tell me, you know, why you and your son or daughter has such a great relationship? What are the things you're doing with them? Because, you know, Doug, as men, we have a hard time admitting that we're not good at something. And I think the two things that most men have that they can't admit to being good at as being probably a parent and a spouse. Most guys don't ever admit that they're not doing right and that they need help because of, I think, the ego in most men. So for me, I just felt, you know, and had a bunch of humbleness about myself. And I said I would reach out to anybody that would allow me to talk to them to get any type of advice to help me be a better father and a better husband. Because every day in life, I'm trying to be that, you know, the best. I want to be considered in my mind, in my kids' mind, and in Katie's mind. I want to be a Hall of Fame dad and a Hall of Fame father. Not dad, but Hall of Fame dad, but a Hall of Fame husband as well. So I'm going to always, you know, search and get answers and try to better myself as a father and a husband. I'm never going to be too proud to ask anybody for help. Maybe the person may not help me, but at least, you know, I gave an effort. And I'm writing this book to help people that they shouldn't feel like they're out there alone with the feelings that they may not think they're doing a good job with their kids. And I just think if everybody give a little bit more effort in what they're doing and being present, I think we can, bend that curve of, fatherless homes and, try to have more fathers be involved with their kids.
Yeah. That's a big one. I know we've done some research on that. And it's you take a look at juvenile delinquency, drug abuse, pregnancy, runaways. The vast majority of those issues are all connected to kids being raised without a dad. So
yes,
your message is not just better fathers. It's let's cure a lot of ills of society by focusing on the core issue. Let's not treat the symptoms. Let's treat the disease. Let's get families again.
I think, Doug, I can, harbor back to my own childhood and the things that I made mistakes on and the things I made mistakes in, high school and college and as an adult. I think if I would have had a dad or, a dad around to be able to talk to, I don't think I would have made a lot of those mistakes. Now, looking back on that, I wouldn't change those mistakes that I made because it has made me a better father to GJ, Max, and Cooper. So they don't make those mistakes that I made. So my whole job is I want to be present and be here for our boys. I mean, for me, I can, go through like with my oldest son, GJ, when I take him to school every day, Doug, I mean, it's like the greatest feeling. My son is in the 9th grade. Our son, GJ, is in the 9th grade, and driving him to school every day and just talking to him about just everything about life, how he's feeling, his emotions, is anything bothering you? I tried to tell him, I'm here all the time for you. I'm here to try to alleviate some of the stresses of being a young teenager. And I tell GJ, all I want you to be is a good brother, a good son, do well in school, be good in society, train hard for whatever sports you're doing at the time, and just enjoy life. You don't need to worry about all the stresses of what adults have to go through. That's my job to take and alleviate you from that, because you're going to be an adult someday. And so hopefully all the things that I'm going through with him, GJ picks up and learns from it. So when he has his son or daughter, that he can repeat this and even make it better when he becomes a parent. So for me, I just love the time, with talking to the boys, with just about everything in life, and telling them how much I love them and telling them how proud I am of them and the things that they're doing, and that I'm always here. Like with I've learned to, especially with GJ, to have him to tell me more about his feelings if I do something to upset him. I tell him all the time, GJ, if I do something to upset you or say something that you didn't like, I want you to be honest with me so we can correct it and learn from it. And he's been doing a good job of telling me when have hurt his feelings, and Cooper as well. So, I mean, it's still a learning process. Every day I'm learning something new. Me and Katie, with being parents to our 3 boys. So it's a learning process, and you're never going to master it because there's no book out there for being a good mom or a good dad or a good parent. You're always learning by trial and error. And I think if you give effort and you're present, I think most of us over time, can learn to be great parents.
Well, there is one book coming out, Being a Good Parent, or Be a Good Dad at least, coming out, called The Present Dad.
Yes.
And people can pre-order those copies before June of 2022. It's available online at thepresentdad.com. You can reserve your copy there. And we've got also a course coming out for people to do some training modules where they actually go through and George discusses each of these chapters and how to be not just a present dad, but a better one. And we need a lot more of those in our world. Thank you very much, George. I appreciate that. That's all the time we have for today. Go ahead, finish up. Go ahead.
Also the foundation.
Yes, we've got a foundation. It's also connected to the book because we're not just doing the book. We're actually going to be doing a whole lot more with curriculums, with events, retreats to help young men get themselves primed and ready for becoming a dad in their future self. So we talk more about that. We'll have you on the show again when that rolls out very soon. But it's all the information is on the website for now for about the book and the foundation at thepresentdad.com.
Yes.
George, you are one of my mentors, man. I appreciate you so much. Appreciate your time, and we'll see you again real soon.
Doug, I appreciate you having me on, and again, I just love talking about being a dad. It's the greatest feeling. So I appreciate you allowing me to come on to your podcast and let the world know what I'm doing and what I'm about. So I appreciate it.
We'll give you more power to you. All right. Thank you so much. That concludes our show for today on the Author Brand Show. Upcoming author, George Jones. Make sure you check out that book. Link is below for his website and book, and a link to his foundation. And, of course, subscribe to our channel. Get you some free goodies as well. So please do that. And until next time, this is Doug Crow.